We run an e-commerce business, but we don't decide what we sell. Our email list does. That sounds backwards, and honestly, a year ago, I would have thought it's a terrible idea. But letting the market decide how we spend our money has completely changed how we run this business. When people think about e-commerce, they think about cool products and influencers. That's the fun part. The dangerous part is everything that happens before the sale. Early on, you have a lot of freedom to be wrong. You can pivot, you can change direction, and you can admit that you were wrong and then move on. But you don't have unlimited cash. I've seen founders get excited, place an order, and then quietly panic because their product doesn't sell. And many times it's because it's not what the market wanted. That's the kind of mistake that we're trying to avoid. The scary part is that most mistakes don't look like mistakes at first. They look reasonable, logical, and confident. You pick a color because you like it, you choose packaging because it feels premium, and you make a call because everyone tells you that speed matters. And for a while, nothing feels wrong. But then all of a sudden, the ads don't convert, people hesitate, and you have to start explaining instead of getting sales. At this point, many founders realized that the problem wasn't execution, but a decision they took further upstream. That's what we wanted to catch early, before the product was locked in and before we spend a bunch of money. Here's why guessing feels so normal. Guessing feels like progress. You choose a color, you choose packaging, and you move forward. And in that moment, it feels decisive and it feels like real progress. But the problem with guessing is that it delays feedback. You don't find out if you were wrong until money has been spent. And we didn't want feedback after the invoice, we wanted it before. That was actually really uncomfortable at first, because when you're building something, there's this constant pressure to move fast. You feel like you should always be deciding, always progressing, and always pushing something forward, because otherwise it feels like you're stuck. But we've learned that there's a difference between momentum and noise. Momentum moves you closer to where you actually want to go and closer to your goals, but noise just makes you feel busy. In the past, we would have taken the lack of immediate clarity as a sign to just make a decision and move on, but now we see it rather as a sign that we haven't asked the right questions yet. That mindset shift alone changed how we think about building this brand. We're not trying to look decisive, we're trying to be correct enough times so we stop digging expensive holes. So we made a simple plan. Before we build anything meaningful, we ask the people most likely to buy it what they think. Not our friends, not people on Instagram, and not what we personally think, but our email subscribers. Not because we're smarter, but because we'd rather listen than guess. Let me show you the first real decision where this changed our behavior. We had opinions about colors. We thought we knew what would look best and what would fit the brand. And honestly, we could have just gone with that. But instead, we sent this email. We asked one simple question. Which colors do you want our swim shorts to launch with? What happened next was quite interesting because it forced us to take a step back. By the way, Nordic Noir and Beer won, and that's the brand colors of Nordic Dudes. That moment changed how we think, because it wasn't about taste anymore, it was about demand. What surprised us wasn't the colors that won, but how quickly our own opinions stopped mattering and how much the opinions of the market matter. And there's a strange relief in that as well. We didn't have to argue about what looked best. We didn't have to defend a creative choice. The decision was already made. That's when it really clicked for us. Letting the market decide doesn't make you less creative. It actually frees you up to focus on execution instead of second guessing. That shift alone saved us hours of discussions and probably a lot of stress down the line. Here's the part that people don't talk enough about though. Every physical product decision is a commitment, and once you order inventory, you're locked in. I've talked to founders who realized this way too late and bought the wrong product and then just sit there and have something that no one wants. So the lesson here is asking beforehand saves a lot of money, and fixing problems afterwards is very expensive. This strategy isn't about being polite to customers. It's about staying alive long enough so you can build a real brand. Right now we're running another test, packaging. a box or a reusable bag? I have a personal preference. I think a bag makes more sense. It's reusable, it's practical, but here's the thing. What I think doesn't matter as much as what our audience thinks. That's the discipline, separating what you want from what the market wants. And sometimes the market really surprises you. And I can already hear some people say, oh, but your email list is so small, it's only 350 people. And they're right, it is small and it only is 350 people. But in that list, there are people who said what they want and what they prefer, and that shows intent. Early customers aren't random, they're a preview of the future, and if you ignore them, you're building a brand for imaginary people. There's another transformation that happens when you do this. When people help shape something, even in a small way, they stop feeling like customers and start feeling involved. So now when you send updates, they're not just watching a brand, they're watching their own decisions play out in real time. That's how you go from selling products to building a tribe. One way to think about this is to separate decisions into two categories. There are cheap decisions, which are things you can undo quickly, and then there are expensive decisions, things that lock you in. Cheap decisions are things like copy changes, minor website tweaks, and testing different emails. If you're wrong, you learn and you move on. Expensive decisions, though, are different. Things like colors, packaging, positioning, inventory size. There are decisions that quickly lock you in. And once you commit, it's really expensive to change them. Those are the decisions worth slowing down for. Those are the decisions worth asking real people about. There's one important caveat with this approach though. It doesn't eliminate risk, it shifts it. So you move risk from after money is spent to before money is spent. And personally, that's a much better place to deal with it in my opinion. If you're building something, here's the framework we use. Number 1, identify expensive decisions. Number 2, ask what your audience thinks. And then number 3, decide based on what your audience chose. That's how we believe you stop guessing and start compounding good decisions. There's one important clarification here though. We don't ask our audience about everything. There are decisions that are our responsibility as founders. Things like quality standards, manufacturing constraints, and ethical lines that we don't cross. Our audience helps us guide what we build, but we're responsible for how it's built. If you outsource everything to your customers, you end up with a messy product and no point of direction. The goal isn't democracy, the goal is alignment. We bring direction and they bring signal. And when those two meet, that's when amazing products are built. Most brands try to look confident by hiding their process. We'd rather be honest about what we don't know and ask better questions and let people closest to the problem shape the solution. Because we think that confidence doesn't come from always being right, it comes from knowing why you made a decision. And when customers are part of that decision, they're not just buying a product, they're buying into a journey. And that's how we built Nordic Dudes. If this helped, please subscribe and let me know down in the comments what's one expensive decision you could ask your audience about before committing. I hope you have a nice day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.